So it was recently disclosed that someone breached Fidelity's computer systems. Yes, Fidelity, the big broker that we all know and love. And apparently data from about 77,000 customers was leaked, I guess is the way to put it. And so what I want to do in this video is just briefly walk through what happened and a class action lawsuit that's resulted, and then what can we do about it? It seems like now just anybody can get hacked. The government gets hacked. Big financial institutions get hacked. What in the world should we do about it? So that's what we're going to do. Let's dive right in. And I'll link to everything I'm showing you. Here's the first article I want to show you. And this just sort of reports on what happened. You can see Fidelity reports data breach exposing 77,000 customers' personal data. Now, I'll just say at the outset, to my knowledge, no assets were actually compromised. No, as far as I know, from what I've read, no one went in and actually took money from Fidelity or Fidelity's customers. It appears to be personal data. And in this article, you can see right here, and again, I'll link to everything, it appears to have affected folks in Maine, New Hampshire, and Massachusetts. That's at least what I have been able to determine. And we can look at each of those three states. Let's do that quickly. Again, I'll link to everything below the video. This is from Massachusetts. This is actually kind of frightening. Perhaps the most frightening part of all of this for me was this document right here. I don't know if you can see that. Let me get rid of that right here. It's 296 pages long. You say, well, gee, Rob, what is that? Those are data breaches this year. I don't think, at least from what I went through, yeah. So I guess maybe it stops at, yeah. So it's only 182 pages. What do we have to worry about? Of companies whose computer systems had been breached. And having scrolled down, I lost Fidelity. Here we go. Here's the line for Fidelity. There may be other lines for Fidelity, by the way, but I think this is the one in question. Looks like it affected 2,768 residents. Social Security numbers were breached, yes. Financial account was breached. I don't have any details beyond that. And driver's license number. So that's Massachusetts. And then here is Maine. And it looks like 337 residents were affected. Now, this says, again, this is the 77,000 number, total number. When you take Massachusetts, this is Maine, this is New Hampshire, and this was a letter they submitted. It doesn't add up to 77,000. So I don't know if that means, and again, I'll link to everything below the video. I don't know if that means, this is New Hampshire. I'll come back to that other document. New Hampshire just showed, I don't know if you can read it right here, 508. So that, those three states, the numbers don't add up to 77,000. What could explain that is that it may be that whatever breach occurred, it wasn't sufficient in a number of cases to trigger the reporting requirements in each of these states. That could possibly be. But these are the three states I've been able to find. Now, in terms of the details, we can actually, if we go back to Maine, there's a link here. So I'll give you the link to this page. You can go to the sample letter if you want. It's a PDF, but let me show it to you. This is a sort of a template of the letter Fidelity sent out to those affected. So if you haven't received this letter, I suppose it could come soon, but hopefully that means your data wasn't compromised. But you can see here, they explain right here what happened. Between August 17th and 19th, a third party accessed and obtained certain information without authorization. Fidelity detected this on August 19th, took some steps. And so you can read that letter. I won't obviously read the whole letter to you, but that sort of walks through what happened. Now, I mentioned a lawsuit because, when this happens, folks get sued. That's just the way it works. And so here is an article on the class action lawsuits that have been filed. Obviously, they've just been filed. Who knows if Fidelity will try to move this to arbitration, if there's an arbitration clause, and there almost always is, if that even applies here. I don't know if it does, but I can keep an eye on this lawsuit for you. But that's effectively what happened. Now, I will mention, by the way, since we're talking about lawsuits, I have done videos in the past about Vanguard's lawsuit when they made some changes to their funds and it triggered massive capital gains for some folks and taxes. There was an announcement that there's a settlement in the works. We don't know the details. I have been communicating with plaintiffs' counsel, and I should have an update for you on or about That's legal talk for, I don't know really when, but this is my best guess, November 8th. Okay, so back to Fidelity. What do we do about it? At this point, we can't go to the best broker who's never going to get hacked. They're all going to have data compromised at some point or another. Fidelity is, I think one of the best, but we can't just go to Schwab or Vanguard or somewhere else and say, oh, we'll be safe here. Nothing could possibly happen. And so here, I think there's just some basic things we can do to protect ourselves. And let me just run through some things that I do. Maybe it'll be helpful to you. The first, and maybe this will be new for some of you. For my financial institutions, I don't use my sort of main personal email. I don't use the email that I might use to sign up for Netflix or things like that. I have a unique email that I only use from financial institutions. So if that gets compromised in some way, if I start getting spam to that email, that's a sure sign their systems have been compromised, and I'd go in, I'd create a new email account and change the email. So something you might consider doing, a unique email just for your financial accounts. That's number one. Number two, I absolutely use two-factor authentication. That's where you not only put in your username and your password, but then you have to get access to a unique one-time code. I think it's usually 6 digits. Chase is actually 8. I guess they're just, they're serious about the two-factor authentication. Where I can, though, I prefer for that not to be texted to me. With banks, that's often your only option in my experience. But I know with other financial institutions, like Fidelity, for example, you can use their app. I think a better way is to use an authentication app. Google has one, for example. And when you go and you log into Fidelity, you can set this up, two-factor authentication. You can call them if you have any questions. The way it works is when you're signed in and you get to that page and you say, I want to use an app to do this, like Google's Authenticator app, it will put a QR code on the screen. And you just scan that. You go into your authentication app, click to create a new account, or not, it's not an account, but a new listing in the Authenticator app. You can then scan with your phone. You literally hold your phone up. Well, you can't see it, but there's my monitor. You literally hold the phone up to capture that QR code. It opens up. It then connects with Fidelity and with the Authenticator app. You have to then put in the code that's in the app. I hope this makes sense. Into Fidelity, it links them. Is what it effectively does. I think that's probably the best way. If one other way, you could use hardware. Symantec has it. There's a YubiKey. You can use actual physical hardware that you would hold that generates a unique code every 60 seconds. That's maybe arguably the most secure way. But I think authentication apps are a good way. But you got to have, even if it's a text, you got to have two-factor authentication. And it's not just on your financial accounts. You absolutely need them on email. If someone can take over your email, that gives them a real good opportunity to take over your financial accounts, because when they go in and want to reset the password, what happens? You get an email. You don't want that email going to hackers. So you want this two-factor authentication on your email accounts as well. Frankly, I know it's a bit of a hassle. I would put it on everything. So that you can do that. Now, different brokers have other ways to secure your accounts. I want to show you one thing that Fidelity offers. It's called lockdown, that can prevent certain transactions from happening until you log in and turn the lockdown off. And you may say, well, wait a minute. What if someone hacks into my account and gets access to my account? Couldn't they go in and turn it off? Yeah, the real purpose of this is for someone maybe to get your account numbers, other information, and they try to do some kind of electronic transfer from your account, not by logging in necessarily, but by trying to do the transfer with account information. I want to show you this lockdown is not foolproof, and it does some things, doesn't do others. I'm not going to go through them all in this video, but from the Bogleheads site forum, this is an excellent thread. This person, they're like the crash test dummies of Fidelity's lockdown mode. They actually implemented this with Fidelity. Then they went to other accounts like their banks and they tried to break it. They tried to see what they could get away with, and they have all of that here. So you can read this. I think this is the best I've seen. And they had some updates here as well. So very, very good stuff. So I would recommend that. The other thing I would mention is that with some brokers, you can limit the amount of money that you can transfer out of your account per day. And I use this with some of the brokers that we use. And I just think sometimes it can be a pain. Oh, I need more than that, so now I got to do transfers over 2 or 3 days. But I think it's worth the extra security. Now, that might not prevent a hacker, if they had the right access, from taking your entire account and like transferring it somewhere. But to go into your account and pull money out and transfer it to an external, say, bank account, it could be one way to protect from that. So you could inquire with your broker if they offer that. I know Schwab does. And then the last thing I'll mention, I'm sure there are other things you can do, but I think this is just important, unfortunately, in this day and age. Use more than one broker. I mean, if I'm just starting out and I've got an IRA with a few $1,000s in it, I'm going to only have one broker. But as you have more money, you're getting closer to retirement, you're in retirement, you have more assets to protect, I would definitely not rely on a single broker. It can be a bit of a hassle from a management perspective. There are plenty of tools that you can use to aggregate all your accounts if you want to. One thing we do that I think will make it easier once we get to RMD ages, and we're more than a decade away from that, but is we tend to keep all of our retirement accounts at one broker, and then most of all of our taxable accounts at another. And that will make RMDs easier, once we get to that age. So those are some suggestions. I'm sure you guys have other great ideas on how to protect your accounts. So if you do, please leave them in the comments below this video. So that we can all learn and try to keep our accounts safe. So there you go. Hope that helps. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. And until next time, remember, the best thing money can buy is financial freedom.